Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, Two Blokes Chatting. Now, here are the Two Blokes.
That is a band called Pseudo Echo, and we've been to Lake Hume this morning. We've now been to Funky Town, and it is our very great pleasure to introduce probably the most famous resident of Funky Town himself, the lead singer of Pseudo Echo, Brian Canham. Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show.
Hey, guys.
Thanks for joining us. How many million times have you played or heard that, do you reckon, over the journey?
Quite a few, I reckon.
It's funny, I spoke to someone in the office during the week and said, I guess I'm chatting to on Saturday. Brian Canham, oh yeah, Funky Town. That was the first two words that came out of their mouth.
Yeah, great. Oh, well, it's nice to be synonymous with something so successful.
Brian, how much fun is it? It was a long, long time ago when that was released, and you still get the privilege to go around, play it, and earn a quid doing it. It must be just fun.
It's fun. It's always a fun song to play. It's one of the ones where you'll never forget the lyrics, and it's only a 3/4, I reckon. So it's so much fun on stage, and we really do a lot with it live as well. So it's a great interaction with the audience and the band.
The physical capabilities are required to do what you do live. How's the body holding up to, and how much work do you have to put in to make sure it remains prepared for the way you present?
Yeah, well, look, I have a personal trainer. I do the diet. Raquel, my wife, our manager, she runs a pretty tight ship with what I ingest and how I deal with things. And so I've got to keep in shape. And you know what? I have an incredible support system with the band. They're all a bit younger than me these days, and they're a fantastic drive behind what I do.
Rob and I go and see a personal trainer. We do radio, so how do you reckon we're travelling just at the minute? Our bloke never admits to being our personal trainer, I can tell you that.
And definitely not.
No.
Brian, just on that, is doing what you have to do to remain fit and healthy to perform, is it a bit of a chore sometimes, or have you just got into a lifestyle that you know that you're comfortable with it, or do you fight, oh geez, I'd like to go down to the takeaway food shop and have a big pizza? Does that sort of thing go through your head?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a stickler, being a northern suburbs boy, that, you see the local fish and chip shop. I can just smell the grease from here. And
Raquel's going, no, Brian, stop it.
If the phone hangs up, we'll know why. Raquel's just grab the phone. Hey, take us back to 1982 then, Brian, where it all started. You mentioned it's northern suburbs. We knew that. I'm going to say Greenwood High School. How am I doing?
Yeah, bang on. That was a school and a half. It was quite experimental. I think when they first opened the school, they only had 1 year of students, and each year they added another year, and it was kind of run by a bunch of hippies, so it was always open-minded, and they promoted the arts and really encouraged us to pursue music as a career even, and so I was lucky to have that background.
Most of our listeners are based in and around the Geelong and the Surf Coast, so they won't know where Greenwood is. Bundoora, is that the best way to describe it? Sort of north-eastern?
Uni is it's famous thing there, I guess.
Okay, yep, excellent. So were you always musically inclined, like family influences, or what made you decide, I think I'll be a muso?
Well, my father was a muso. He was in the Air Force band. Where was he? He was stationed in Egypt, and he was in a jazz band and played sort of, bass, upright bass, piano, trumpet. He was multi-instrumental, so it was always around as a kid. But funnily enough, I'm the youngest of 5 boys, and all my brothers are all sportsmen, and they're fantastic sportsmen. So for me, it was like, there's got to be something I'm good at, and there was a big trophy cabinet with all my brothers' best and fairest trophies every year. And so it was a good day when I put my first 7-inch vinyl single in the trophy cabinet, followed by a gold record soon after.
Nice.
That was something to say, all right, I found my thing now.
The Bundoora Bears, is that who they played for?
Yeah, something like that. I think they were called the Bunnies, but maybe they...
Yeah, I think they were... my son played against the same team. They were officially known as the Bears, I think, but they became... Sort of the nickname was the Bunnies because of Bundoora, you say?
Yeah. That's right, that's right.
Oh, there you go. It's a big jump from, I think I want to be a muso, to finding yourself on Countdown. Talk us through some of that.
Well, yeah, look, we started just as a humble three-piece electronic outfit, which was pretty unusual for the day because everyone else was kind of guitar, bass and drums, and it was very much pub rock. And, we started, little, we'd get opening acts offered to us, probably because we were quick to get off and on stage with no drummer. And we got a break supporting the Banshees, Susie and the Banshees once with Robert Smith touring with them, and that was a real big break. And then we started stepping up and doing our own shows, and then Molly turned up at a show just unannounced. We didn't have any idea. He just rocked in and chatted to us, asked us about what's happening, and do we have a record deal and all this, which we didn't. And within about a week, he notified our management and said, we want to put the guys on Countdown. And we were sort of beside ourselves. We said, well, how does that work? We don't have a record deal. He said, doesn't matter. I'm going to, talk about you guys and announce you to the world and tell everybody to, all these record companies that, open their eyes and have a look. So it was good for us.
Because keep this theme going.
The timing on that, it's not like when Skyhooks came along, for example, Countdown was fledgling. I mean, by this stage, Countdown's established and every man and his dog in Australia's watching it.
Absolutely. It was a captive audience, 3-4 million people. You got played on a Sunday and then again the following Saturday. So it was incredible exposure. And if Molly championed it and said, hey, I reckon these guys are the thing, well, you can't get much better than that.
No, he was certainly, his fingerprints, excuse the expression, are on many of the artists that we've spoken to. That little start that they got in Countdown, certainly the springboard to do that. But there was almost this unwritten rule. If Molly was in your corner, you were destined for something. Yeah,
he really stood behind things he believed in. And, with Pseudo Echo, it was a real genuine love. He really dug the band. He'd met two of the members, myself and Pierre, when we were kids. We used to frequent the club he DJ'd at, and he'd met us as young kids. And then when he saw us in this band, and he realised we were the little kids who used to listen to his set every week, he was so taken aback. And I think he just took us under his wing, and really, really nurtured us and really sort of oversaw things. And he always went out on a limb for us. So it was a genuine belief in the band.
Brian, I just want to take you back to the brothers thing, because I remember certainly coming from a little country school into town, went straight into the choir at the school and only lasted 12 months because the peer group pressure said, that's not what we do. So what you were doing was really different. Was there lots of ribbing from brothers, and that was more of an inspiration that you wanted to annoy them by sticking with it, or was it just a genuine love for music that kept driving you?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, being that I said my father was musical, he was always trying to, sort of subtly introduce it to one of my older brothers. So one had a drum kit, one had a bass, one had a guitar. There was always instruments around, but being that they would be much happier playing kick-to-kick out the front with their mates. So the instruments were often abandoned, and that's when I'd take to them. And I think my parents knew that, so they just thought, well, this is good, just keep it going. And my brothers were incredibly encouraging too. They really embrace it, and you couldn't have any better brothers than I've got that would stand by me on what I did and help me. And one of my brothers in particular, Gary, was incredibly creative, and he'd even write lyrics, and he'd tell me, you need a gimmick and you need a look, you need a sound, and he'd help me and introduce me to lots of new music. So I was very happy, grateful to have that. Yeah.
And like-minded schoolmates that you were drawn to?
Yeah, that's right. So at school I was kind of known as a muso, and not so much the sports guy. It was good with the 12-string guitar and a gaggle of girls around you on the oval making daisy chains while I played Stairway to Heaven.
Rob still does that down in Inverleigh, and it's embarrassing, to be honest.
No, it's good fun though, Brian. I know what you mean. Carry on, keep talking. You've got me intrigued.
Yeah, it was definitely there was something good to be had by being a muso, and I bumped into Pierre. I sort of vaguely knew him at the school, but I didn't really know him that well. And one day he was just walking past and he had a Fender bass case. And I remember, a guitar case that said Fender on it. And I didn't know anybody who had a genuine Fender or Gibson. Everybody just had Chinese or Japanese copies in those days. And, I said to him, what's in the case? And he opens it up and there's this beautiful, 70s, brand new nearly, which would go on to be a future classic, Fender Precision bass, and my eyes nearly popped out of my head. And the first thing I thought of is I said, I need a guy playing one of these in my band, so then we'll be better than all our bands with the Sony basses. We'll have the real deal. So I said, you want to be in my band? I didn't need him play or anything. He just had a good bass.
So the name Pseudo Echo, the story is kicking around, but you might as well tell that to people.
Yeah. Well, so when we started Pseudos, we realised we had to get synthesizers. We needed keyboards. That was what was going to give us the edge over the local bands that were up the road, half a dozen on every corner. And so we did. We went about our way learning to use, and in those days they were very manual. You couldn't just turn it on and it made a sound. You had to turn all those dials and plug things in and make these incredible setups to make a sound. So they'd come with a manual. Manual would give you an idea, here's one that sounds this way, or fuzz wah wah, or whatever it might be. And one of the sounds was Pseudo Echo Machine. And as we were setting up and just mucking around in rehearsal, and we said, we're going to have to come up with a name for the band. And Tony, our keyboard player, was reading the manual at the time, and he just turned the page and said, how about Pseudo Echo Machine? And we said, well, the Pseudo Echo bit sounds good. We'll just trim it down. And what does it mean even? The sound is just some novel sound. And so we just said, hey, that's a great sounding, name for a band. Let's go with that. So we did. It was the first suggestion and the only suggestion.
Brian, there's a lot of weird things happened in the music industry from mid to late 60s through, and then the 70s it changed again. So you did some different stuff as far as Australia goes, but what were the real inspirations maybe from international acts that helped set up the sound that you created?
Well, I reckon undoubtedly like obscure bands like Japan, then, the early Duran Durans, Spandau Ballet, Simple Minds, Gary Newman, Human League, Kraftwerk. All these bands were kind of unknown in Australia at the time, and I started through my brother's sort of network of people who knew listened to records back in the day, who were avid music collectors, and that I was exposed to a lot of this sort of obscure music, and I remember thinking that it had a new sound, and then locally, the first thing I heard was In Excess. We Just Keep Walking. I heard that and thought, wow, these guys are onto something. This is not traditional rock music. There's something different about it. And so these bands, and then Ivor with Flowers and Ice House, they were sort of also pioneering that sound of it in Australia, and they were the local things that influenced me. But yeah, mainly it was coming from overseas. But there was enough there for me to kind of map out a sound and find my own thing amongst that.
One thing I noticed through taking more interest in music is how important the role of production is in a record. You write the song, so you've got the lyrics and the melody, but you had these incredible machines that made all these weird and wonderful noises.
Yeah.
Were you a collective group in organising production and sound, or was there a champion within the group who did this?
Oh, well, look, I would always be the one leading the way, for sure, but not without the support of the others, and they were also incredibly enthusiastic about it. So we'd all be sort of scouring ideas and listening, but I guess I just took the reins. It was, the band would always be my band since I was a kid, so it'd be me saying, I think this or this look or this sound, and then everybody really chipping into where I'd sort of direct it to go. So usually there is a driving force of one or two of the members that sort of push away. But you do need the support of everybody, really.
I'm picturing Richie Benno here. Come on, boys, let's be a team. Do it my way. Was it a bit like that?
A little bit, yeah. You do. Look, you need a leader. You need somebody to kind of lead the way. If it's too democratic, it never goes anywhere. It's just polite.
But you were open to suggestion from the group, which is most important to any good.
Yeah, because I liked the idea of it being a cumulative effort. I liked the feeling of it being a band rather than a solo thing. And I would always say, hey, if you got a bit, can you come up with an idea for this bit, or let me hear that riff.
Yeah.
I'm going to put that in this bit. And so we'd sort of piece together, and I would really, push everyone to see what they had to contribute.
Yeah, good stuff.
And I was in East Doncaster when this was all happening, Brian. That's where I had grown up, and we had the Donny Inn up the road, and of course we could rock at the Croc if we chose to do that, or all those sort of places, Southside 6, places I suspect you spent a lot of time.
Yeah, I did. Well, as a kid, the Croc was like a weekly attendance, and there was Richie's out in the northern suburbs.
Mm-hmm.
And it was important because these were the things where we just sort of, I would maybe just watch. I wasn't there, hitting on chicks or dancing. I was there really watching the music, and I was just absorbing what made the place pump. Which songs brought people onto the dance floor. How they were dancing, how they were reacting, and that I'd just keep going and watching and making mental notes, and I'd always take that in consideration when I'd be writing my own songs. I think, well, this needs to be like that bit in that song, or I need a bit that lifts like this one, and so they're incredibly important days.
And you could go to, if there was a band, particularly someone down from Sydney, like the Mentals, for example, you could actually go to a different pub each night, Rob, in sequence, and follow them around Melbourne, basically, because they'd come to Melbourne for the week, and you could go and see them several times over. Yeah. So we fast forward to the year 2023, Brian, and you're heading to Geelong, and that's in part the reason for the chat. It's always nice to chat to people about their success in music, but you are on your way to town with the cleverly named The Ultimate Tour. I don't think that's ever been used by any other band or artist.
Yeah, well, it was. We figured this was going to be, a culmination of things we've done over 4 years, even though it focuses on really the first 3 albums in the 80s.
Yeah.
But it's the essence of what we've been achieved and what we've been around doing, and it hasn't been without its events during this tour. Let me tell you, we went through 5 drummers so far. We've got a permanent now. It was just incredible pressure during the tour, and when somebody jumps out at the 11th hour with no notice, it can be catastrophic. There can be a chain of events that happens. We can either just cancel the show, but then that's terrible because you're not only are the band out, the venue's out, the audience are out, they're inconvenienced, how long they've planned to go out on the night, promoters are out, everybody's out. It's just this massive chain event, and so, we have to consider, if somebody drops out at the 11th hour, we've just got to go in. The show must go on. What do we do? And ironically, we went through all these drummers, some seasoned pros and some amateurs, until we arrived at this last drummer who we have now, a 19-year-old girl, Abigail Lula. And Abigail, my wife spotted her. She's a bit of a talent scout. She's always looking for backup musicians to have on standby. And said to me, "You've got to see this girl. She's fantastic." And she's videoed herself playing drums, and we had a little look, and then we reached out to her and said, "Hey, we've got an opportunity. Would you like to audition?" And he said, "In fact, you won't be auditioning. You'll just come along and do the gig. So if you can learn the songs in 2 days." And she just went for it, and we met her at the first gig, and that was our introduction, and she hit the stage, and she just killed it. So she's up to her 3rd gig in the tour, so she's a permanent.
Brian, a few weeks ago we were talking to the great Jeff Cox, and he talked about exactly this when he was called into the Little River Band to fill in for a week way back, and he had to learn the songs on the plane on the way to America, and he stayed with them for 18 months. So if you're looking for a 7th drummer, Coxie might be your man.
You have to go to the Roxy to find Coxie, of course. Yeah, Tracy, the promoter who put us in touch, mentioned that Abigail and the fact that she was just a freak of nature in terms of her ability to drum.
Yeah, she's fantastic and just a beautiful person. And it's taken us a long time to find somebody who fits in with the rest of the band. We're really tight. We're a real family. And we finally found one like us, and she's a keeper for sure. She's so natural and funnily enough, when we reached out to her, she said, "Oh, I'm a fan. I've been listening to the music since I was a kid. My parents love it, and I know all the stuff really well." So, to get somebody to have that much dedication and respect for her employer, it's a pretty good thing to have.
And the fact that she was born 20 years after Funky Town.
It's pretty amazing.
Hey, does she call you Mr. Canham, or is she allowed to call you Brian?
No, she just calls me Brizey.
Hey, Brian, on that, we've spoke to Russell Morris, and he talked about his hitchhiking through Geelong to go to Torquay as a youngster and playing gigs around here before he was known. Obviously, the Little River Band story is famous. Coming to Geelong, we know that Cole Chisel came down here and played the Sundowner often. Have you had much exposure to Geelong before?
Oh, yeah. In the 80s, we played it a lot. I've forgotten all the names of the venues, but we did play lots of times. And, I had those memories of going down to Torquay through Geelong, and I think it was in the back of my dad's Holden GTO ute. So, it's fond, and I had a family that I loved in Geelong that I grew up with as a kid, and I would stay at the grammar school during the summer holidays. So I have a real connection with Geelong.
Because the Eureka Hotel, a very famous hotel in this town, rebranded itself a little while ago, and last Friday reopened as the Eureka and is going to be a live music venue in Geelong in Little Malop Street. Very exciting news for town.
Well, that was the one I was trying to think of at least.
Well, it's back. The Eureka is back. So that's very, very exciting. Brian, we need to promote this event. It is happening next Friday night. I panicked a little bit when I picked up the piece of paper this morning and Tracy had written on Friday, the 15th of September, they bring their full production. I thought, hello, that was last night, but it is in fact this coming Friday. We'd all panic. 22nd of September, the week coming up. It's at the Story House at the Geelong Arts Centre in Little Mallup Street. The time is 8 p.m, 2 hours and 20 minutes if you don't mind, Rob, including intermission. So it's not just Brian's coming out and doing a 1964 Beatles. It's a full 2 hours, 20 minutes including intermission. $65. Come on. Seriously, that is outstanding value. And you can get tickets, surprisingly, at pseudoecho.net or at tickets.geelongartscentre.org.au. I'll say that again before we let you go. Tell us what people can expect in the 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Well, you're going to have a lot of nostalgia, that's for sure. A lot of fun, a lot of interactivity, and we're going to take you back. We even play a few of the songs of our third album, Race, that we never played in the 80s because it was around the time we broke up, the sort of, the stadium rock sort of sound. So we take the audience through a journey chronologically, really, until we arrive at just a lot of fun at the end.
That's it. Now, will there be, because I asked this question in the office the other day, and I had most of the 35-year-olds that I work with look at me like I'd asked them to dance. Will there be a guitar on stage?
There will, in fact, absolutely be a guitar. It's a big part of the show with Pseudo Echo. It's a 6-piece lineup this time round. It's got massive visuals, so they're all synchronised to the music, epic light show. It's a different league to what we've done in the past.
They had no idea what a guitar was.
I do. I reckon.
They didn't. These 35-year-olds, they don't know anything anymore, do they?
No, guitar, you have to see it, I think, to believe it.
I showed them a photo, you'll be pleased to know.
Brian, we hope your trip's memorable because there's been a huge investment into the Geelong Arts Centre. It is something Geelong is very, very proud of, and the reports back from visitors that have come to see it think it's fantastic, and I hope you have a great experience and therefore will want to come back more because this stuff that you produced all those years ago is timeless, like so much music we grew up with, and we're looking forward to seeing you in town.
Thank you. Yeah, we're looking forward to it. And I've had a little look at the photos of the venue, and we're really excited to be playing it.
Well, we're excited to have you down here Friday the 22nd of September, the Story House Geelong Arts Centre. That's next Friday, folks, so get your tickets early. 8 p.m, $65 plus booking fee. You can get them at pseudoecho.net. There's no .au on the end, just pseudoecho.net or at tickets.geelongartscentre.org.au. Brian Canham from Pseudo Echo, thanks for being part of the Two Blokes Chatting radio show. We're going to play Listening next. Is that all right with you?
Fantastic.
Excellent. Thanks, Brian.